Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about reference points on the bass. This is something that comes up in lessons pretty often, so I just thought it would be helpful to cover it in a video. When we are moving around the bass, often we measure the notes we're going from and the notes we're going to simply by the left-hand distance. This is partly why we do scales or arpeggios, is just to, on a daily basis, remind ourselves how far it is from this note to that note. And in general, that's one of the main ways we have as reference. But there's several places on the bass that you can have additional reference points, and that just helps reinforce your knowledge of where you are in the bass, and generally can help your intonation be even more reliable. So the one place that is going to happen is the nut right up here. So if I were playing, say, an A on the G string and I had to shift back to an A here, if I'm going to measure this entire distance simply by my fingers, obviously that's a significant difference. That's what, 1.5 feet, something like that. So the likelihood that I'm just going to nail that low A is, it's decent, but not maybe as good as I'd like it to be. Now, instead of measuring from here to here, what if I just measured from the nut to here? And so that would look like that kind of move. And I do this a lot, especially in orchestra when it's loud and you can't hear yourself as well as you'd like. This is a very common reference point I'll use. So if I need to play it first, if I'm playing third position, fourth position, somewhere else, I need to get back to first position or half position, boom. I'll just let my finger or my hand just hit the nut as a reference. Like, it reminds me that's where I am, and now all I'm measuring is, you know, an inch or two, as opposed to a foot or more. So, so just imagine that whenever you're shifting back, you can always use the nut as a reference. You can even use it when you're doing a minor third or a major third. But again, this is going to be a smaller distance to measure from the nut to here than if you're playing from here and then trying to measure from here to here. The second place is the crook, you call it the crook of the neck. And there's a couple different slight variations here. So many basses are what we'd call a D neck, and I'm going to assume you're playing on one of those right now, although there definitely are some that are E flats. But what that means is if you drop your hand, so basically this part of your hand hits the top of the crook of the neck, you're going to be pretty much in D territory. Every bass is a little different. You might have to lean a little bit that way, this way, but generally if you drop your hand and play first finger, it's around there. Again, it depends on the shape of this. Every bass is a little different. This isn't the bass I play every day. This is the one I have here at San Diego State. So I have to remind myself every time I get here that that's where the D is. And so that's pretty much the exercise you do. Let your hand go back here, drop it, but use this part of your hand as the reference. There, find D, find D, find D. Now use your second finger, find E flat. But again, my reference is this part of my hand hitting the top here. The next sort of semi-position is going to be finding F with your fourth finger, or you could do E flat too with your first. It's the sort of middle position here. And for this one, I use, it's more like the heel of my hand around here, because you're coming around the side of the neck a little more. Right around there. So again, I'm refamiliarizing myself with this particular bass. It feels just about like that, a little flat. But I have to do it a few times and then I start remembering where that is. And again, if I were playing scales every day on this bass, I would be more familiar with exactly which part of my hand has to hit exactly which part of the crook of the neck when I do that. Then the last one is going to be the F sharp. And for me, on most basses, that's going to be the side of my hand right here. So not so much the back, although my thumb will come along, but generally it's just hitting here. So you can imagine it's almost like just a karate chop on the side here, and that's the F sharp. So those are all helpful, not only when shifting up to these notes, but it's also helpful shifting down. So for instance, if you're playing a G major scale, you have the G harmonic here, you're you've already played the third octave here, you're coming down, instead of just going here and putting your finger here and sort of measuring as you go, you sort of slide the side of your hand back to the side of the bass, and that gives you the reference point for the F sharp. And again, you have to fine tune it, you have to practice it several times just to make sure with your hand and whatever particular bass you're playing on, that it really lines up. But it can be a reference point, and any additional reference point we can use is helpful. I guess the last thing I'd say is some of us also use dots on, especially in the upper registers. I find this also can be very helpful when used wisely. I don't stare at my hand all the time I'm playing up here, but if I have to do a big jump, it is helpful sometimes to see just the reference point of where a new position would be. So often I would have it on the octave, the fifth, and then this octave here. So 3 dots can be helpful. On the other hand, you can just use the harmonics as reference points as well, because if you watch the previous video about finding the center of the harmonic, that is another type of physical feedback we get. It's not visual so much, but you can feel if you're right in the middle of the harmonic, and that tells you where you are in the bass. So I hope that those are helpful, and I'll see you for some more videos later.